must have come from another planet, but his place of origin was a little closer to home. As part of the BBC's People's History of Pop season, we visited some of those in the southeast whose lives were touched by the Starman. On January the 10th, 2016, the world was rocked by the death of David Bowie. There's been a huge public reaction to his death, which just goes to show how much Bowie achieved in the 69 years of his life. I'm an alligator. Bowie was a trailblazer across the music scene. His work combined many different art forms to create a visual presence that was second to none. We travel across the southeast to meet the fans.
Every time I go past this gorgeous one in the hallway, I can't resist giving a quick slap.
The friends.
I didn't see his potential as the megastar that he became. None of us did.
And the collaborators.
The Ziggy guitar sound is a wah-wah pedal, switched on when it shouldn't be.
Now Ziggy played guitar, jamming good with weird and
He had many personas, but before he was the Thin White Duke or Ziggy Stardust, he was David Jones from Bromley.
Ziggy really sang, screwed up eyes, screwed down hairdo, like some cat from Japan.
In January 1947, David Robert Jones was born in Brixton, but grew up in Bromley. And it was at the Bromley Technical High School for boys that a playground scuffle would change his looks forever.
The classic story of he had a fight with a guy called George Underwood, who'd eventually go on to be his sleeve designer in the future. But they had a fight over a girl, and George Underwood punched him in the eye, and the pupil permanently dilated, so that giving him this legendary look of having different coloured eyes.
In 1963, Jones left school with 1 O-level in art. He became a trainee artist at an ad agency, but that wasn't for him. He wanted to be a star and joined several bands looking for his elusive breakthrough.
They sort of weren't particularly going anywhere for him quick enough, so he joined the Managed Boys. And there he had this ambition, though, he had this vision that he was going to be their Mick Jagger, so you could see he was already, aiming high and saw himself amongst the greats.
The Maidstone-based Managed Boys were really going places, with TV appearances and gigs aplenty. David was finally making ground.
When you think of his voice on that, right, it hasn't changed that much, has it? It's still so recognisable.
Wolf Byrne, who still lives in Maidstone, was a sax player in the band and remembers David's audition when they were introduced by music publisher Dick James.
He brought this Davy Jones down to Maidstone where we were rehearsing. We'd been expecting, actually, the only Davy Jones we'd ever heard of, or we thought, was a black R&B singer. So we were quite keen on seeing this guy. Anyway, the door opens and in comes this very thin, very pale youth. Yeah, so he sang a couple of numbers, but didn't think he was going to get very big, but certainly not that big.
David was with the Managed Boys for the best part of a year, but was soon on the move again. It was now the mid-60s, and music tastes were changing, so David joined the Margate mod group, the Lower Third.
By then he changed his name to David Bowie. There was a clash of interest. Davy Jones, who would eventually become a member of the Monkees, so he didn't want to clash with that. And also Davy Jones is a fairly sort of ordinary name, and if you've got these ideas of being this sort of supernatural pop star, you want something a bit different.
The blazing sunset in your eyes.
Bowie admired other art forms and borrowed constantly from them. And in 1969, he co-founded his own arts lab with his friend and landlady, Mary Finnegan. It was held every Sunday night in Beckenham, in the back room of the Three Tons pub, and it was a place where artists could share ideas.
It just hit the mood of the moment, yeah? And we discovered that they were poets, there were writers, there were puppeteers, there were printmakers, there were authors, and everything you could think of. And all these people had all this artistic talent. And the Arts Lab movement was just starting to happen across the country, moving out from London. And so we asked our audience one night, would you like to turn the folk club into an arts lab? And they got up and cheered. So we did it.
The late 60s saw man rocket to the moon, and Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey hit cinemas. Bowie experimented with the current appetite for all things space and combined it with a traditional folk ballad to conjure up his first top 5 hit, Space Oddity. David was determined not to be a one-hit wonder, so he and Mary organised a music festival at the Bandstand in Beckenham. By this point, the pair were lovers, but David was soon to develop stronger feelings for another, a young American woman called Angie Barnett.
When Angie came on the scene, it all got a bit turbulent. No, I actually knew that something was going on because I'd been in London for a couple of days on my own, and I came back and the flat was immaculate. And when I left David on his own, normally I would come back to a fairly grungy kitchen because he was not at all domesticated. And I came in and it was spotless. And I thought, something funny going on here. And so eventually I sort of crept into his room, and there was a very strong smell of Chanel No. 5. There was a flowered kimono hanging over a chair, and by his bed was a notebook with a song entitled Beautiful Angie. So I got the message.
Were you upset?
Yeah.
The following year, Angie and David were married at the Bromley Register Office, and in 1971, their son, Zoe Bowie, was born. The young family continued to live in the area until Bowie created his ultimate persona, Ziggy Stardust. The messianic Martian helped to send the singer's career stratospheric. And with superstardom comes superfans.
So welcome to my Aladdin's Cave. This is my David Bowie shrine. This photograph is taken by her Briss.
Rachel's obsession with the rock god began as an 8-year-old girl when she was growing up in Surrey, and she's been collecting rare and wonderful Bowie memorabilia ever since.
When I was at school, I was a day girl, and there were lots of boarders. So there had to be a magnet to come to my house, okay? And the magnet was my mum, because she's a fabulous cook. So they'd all pile down to my house, and they'd all come into my room, except they needed to pay an entrance fee. I had double wardrobes, and as you open the double wardrobes, I would give the boarders a marker pen, and the entrance fee was you had to write the lyrics of any David Bowie song on my wardrobe, and then you could come into my cave.
1985 was the year Bowie played Live Aid. An ensemble of the world's biggest musical acts was assembled to raise money for charity. With everyone's eyes on Bowie, he needed the best band around. He called on the services of guitarist Kevin Armstrong, who lives in St Leonard's, and backing vocalist Tessa Niles from Chilham to perform with him at Wembley.
It wasn't Bowie's manager that called me, but it was somebody close to him who said, "How would you like to be in the biggest rock and roll gig of all time?" And I was like,
I got a phone call saying, go to Abbey Road and take your guitar. Mr. X will do a session there with you, and some other musicians will be there, and it will be a big day for you.
Bowie arrived, and it just sent the thing into hyperspace. You know, he was just that electricity, that energy kind of coming in. We were all so thrilled.
We were all excited. We were kids, and it was like all our birthdays came at once to be there.
Oh, it still gives me chills just walking out and seeing that many people in the audience just pumping, and was never before, never again.
The boy from Bromley fulfilled his wildest dreams to become a megastar.
BBC Radio 6 Music is 8 minutes past 7 on Monday, the 11th of January. There was a statement on David Bowie's official Twitter and Facebook confirming that he has died.
Last month, Bowie's fans heard the news they didn't want to hear. David had lost his 18-month battle with cancer. But he never forgot who he really was. When Bowie received his diagnosis in 2014, he made a secret trip to the UK from his home in New York to say goodbye to the places where it all began.